Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Gas South District's That's the Ticket, the ultimate podcast exploring all things Gas South District and a source for insights to events on campus and discussions on the wider entertainment and tourism industry. Please welcome the host of our show, Stan Hall, CEO of Gas South District and Explore Gwinnett.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of That's the Ticket podcast, where we are joined by a true leader and influential figure in Gwinnett County, Mr. Richard L. Tucker. Richard is the CEO and co-founder of Arlington Capital. With an impressive career spanning decades, Richard has become a cornerstone of both the local business community and throughout the state of Georgia, serving in pivotal roles such as chairman of the Gwinnett Convention Visitors Bureau, former president of Gwinnett Chamber of Commerce, and is a long-serving member of the University System of Georgia's Board of Regents. Richard, thanks so much for being with us. We're thrilled to have you today, and we can't wait for this conversation. So thank you for coming today.
Well, thank you, Stan. Thanks for having me. I'm familiar with your work over here. Obviously, I've been involved a long time with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and seen this campus grow up around us, and so I'm pleased to be here.
Absolutely. So, Richard, let's talk a little bit about your past as we get started today. You've had an incredible journey as a prominent leader in Gwinnett County and beyond. Could you just share some of the earliest lessons about leadership you learned and how that sort of shaped your philosophy that you still use today?
Yeah, you may know I grew up in DeKalb County and central DeKalb County and went to public schools there all the way. And I grew up in a working class family. My dad and my mother both worked, and so I learned early on that a good work ethic is important and valuable. And so both of them exhibited that. I had responsibilities as a child, whether it was yard work or house cleaning or whatever my mother and dad needed me to do. I had one brother who unfortunately passed away about 9 years ago, but we grew up as just typical middle-class family. But I saw both my parents get up every day, go to work, come home in the evening and look after my brother and me and get ready for the next day. And so my thought was, you have to be prepared for what's going to happen as well as taking care of what you charged with doing right then. So I've always felt like a work ethic is important, and I like to think I've had a pretty good one over the years.
I think you have too, Richard. And we were just sort of thinking about some of the things you talked about growing up with your parents and watching how they did. Your background started in DeKalb County up until the point you went to the University of Georgia. Tell us a little bit about that. I know you embarked after that on a real estate career.
Yeah.
How did your education at the University of Georgia and those early experiences prepare you for the challenges and the opportunities that followed up after that?
Well, I'm like a lot of people. First of all, I was basically the first generation college student in my family and my extended family, but I grew up in DeKalb public schools and was a good student. Not necessarily a serious student, but a good student. And so I was fortunate to go to the University of Georgia just out of high school. And I can't say I had an unblemished academic career there. It took me a while to figure out being out on your own, not having people you had to be directly accountable to. You had to be accountable to yourself. So it took me a little while to adjust to that, but I finally picked up on it and managed to get my degree. My parents helped to the extent they could and would and paid the basics, but I worked but we were on quarters back then. Every quarter I was in school, I worked multiple jobs in the Athens area to help pay my expenses, pay my fraternity dues, pay my living expenses, have my spending money. But I had started doing that in high school. I started when I was 14 years old. Working. My dad was in the car business. He was a general manager of a Chevrolet dealership in Stone Mountain. And I would ride the bus from Clarkston to Stone Mountain after school when I wasn't playing sports or other extracurricular activities, and ride the bus down, work in the afternoons, and then ride home with my dad when he got off work. Sometimes it was at 6 o'clock. Sometimes that was 8 o'clock. But in any event, I worked from the beginning since I was 14 years old to make my own spending money, saved up and bought my first vehicle. I just knew that if you worked hard and you got rewarded for it, there was a bigger reward down the road. And so I just always felt like that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, exactly.
And I did.
Yeah. So Richard, I've known you for, I know 40 years, maybe a little bit more than that. And I know your past journey. But for those people who don't know it, let's talk a little bit about that today. Because when you graduated from the University of Georgia, real estate was not what you went into. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, actually, it was. Let me correct you there.
Okay.
I graduated from Georgia in 1972, so that's 53 years ago. And I had a lot of job opportunities. I'd interviewed with the big companies, the banks, some of the major manufacturers, and I had a degree in business from Georgia. And I was working part-time, as I mentioned earlier. And my last job, I was actually selling mobile homes in Athens, Georgia, and on full commission and making good money. And when I graduated in 1972, all the big companies paid exactly the same thing. $8,400 a year, $700 a month. Well, I would have had to take a pay cut as a college graduate. And so my dad's best friend was Wayne Mason's uncle and Jimmy Mason's uncle. Yep. And they arranged, this was like an arranged marriage. They arranged for me to go to work. It was then called Suburban Realty in Snellville, Georgia, selling homes in the Snellville area. And it was like hunting over a baited field because there were a lot of people coming to Snellville and to Gwinnett County. And I was there to provide sales. And so I did really, really well the first year and a half or 2 years. And then, unfortunately, the Great Depression of 1974 and 75 came along, and I happened to be, you have to work. By then I'd had a wife when I got out of college, but by then I had a son and a daughter by 1975. Yep. And so I lived next door to the high school principal who you knew. I did. And I asked him one day, did he have any openings over at the school? I needed a job. And so he said, well, can you do this? I said, I can do anything you need me to do. Well, do you have a teaching certificate? No, I have a degree, but I don't have a certificate. He said, well, can you get one? I said, I'll find out. Well, I got a provisional certificate, but I had to go back to UGA and take a couple of courses to get enough in a field, which happened to be social studies. So I went to Loganville High School and coached history and PE. And I tell people all the time, I'm not sure I taught anything, but I held class on a regular basis. But I did coach. I was assistant coach for football and boys and girls basketball, and had a 2-year run of doing that. Thought it was great. Loved everything about it. But again, it didn't pay a lot either. So my friend Wayne Mason then got elected chairman of the county commission, and his brother Jimmy came to see me one day in Loganville and said, Wayne needs you to come to work in the county to help him in the commission office. I said, well, what are y'all going to pay and when do I start? So I went up there in the fall of 77 and spent almost 3 years working in the commission office with Wayne, and along with Wayne Shackelford, who you also knew, who was a very distinguished county administrator, later became the DOT commissioner, and was really a inspiring individual to train under and be mentored by, which I've had a lot of great mentors in my life, but Wayne Shackelford certainly one of them. But anyway, I worked there a while, and then Virgil Williams came along, who's another great Gwinnett icon, and offered me a job to come to work as his assistant. At the time, he was at Williams Contracting, but he had just bought the Gwinnett County Bank, which he later merged with another bank and became Heritage Bank, and later sold. Anyway, I worked for Virgil for almost 3 years as his administrative assistant, and just whatever he needed done, that's what I got done. But that gave me an opportunity to meet a lot of outstanding Gwinnett leaders, such as John D. Stevens, and I mentioned Virgil, and Wayne Shackelford, Wayne Mason, his brother Jimmy. Met Paul Duke. I met Jim Cowart. All these people were very successful Gwinnett business people and leaders, both at the chamber, through the politics of the county. And so I got a chance to see it all unfold. And again, this was almost 53 years ago. So a lot's happened. but I can't attribute any of my success to anything more so than the people I met, the habits I learned from them, how to be a successful business leader, and all those things. Leadership, I've often said, if you're leading and nobody's following, you're just out for a walk. So I figured, let's find out how people want to be led, and it doesn't always have to be from the front. You can lead by being a participatory part, which I've done in many cases. Mm-hmm. But as to leadership, I was in 1994. Tommy Hughes, who was a longtime county commissioner, 2-term, was on the board here at the Gwinnett Convention and Visitors Bureau and asked me to join the board, which I did. So that means I've spent more than 30 years here. I'm a term limit guy, but I don't always practice what I preach. But I have been here. I've been chairman multiple times, and I'm chairman for this year, as you know, and may have mentioned. But being in a leadership means find out what needs to be done, figure out the best way to do it. Is that a collaborative nature, which I think for the most case it is, or is it just we're going to decree this or decree that? Some leaders have different styles. That's not my style, but if it gets tough and the deciding vote's the leader, then the deciding voter is the leader. That's sometimes the way it has to work.
So, Richard, before we move into another section, I want to back up just a little bit, because I was just sitting here listening to you, and you were naming all those people off that were influential in your life. And 50 years ago, but the majority of the people that you talked about were from one particular area of the county. Is that just coincidental, you think, or how did that work out with all those people being so closely related?
Well, it certainly was coincidental from the fact that when I took this first job in April 1, 1972, it was based in Snellville.
Yeah.
Most of my business at that time was in Snellville, and some of these people that I mentioned all lived in and around Snellville. They also happened to be friends and associates and colleagues of Wayne and Jimmy Mason. So that helped, get a foot in the door, and you learn a lot by just standing around and listening. And you have to be selective in asking questions. You can't just be like a question one after another after another. Well, why? And that, don't question what the answer is. Evidently, you didn't know, or you wouldn't ask. And when they told you the answer, accept it. But then you can go research it on your own. Exactly. So I tell young people all the time who I try to mentor, because people have been so good to me. I've had so much help. I try to give that back. And so some of the lessons I try to teach them is be around, be active, but be in the game. That Hamilton show, in the room where it happens. That's important. Right. But how you conduct yourself in that room means if you get invited back to the room the next time.
That's exactly.
And so a lot of good lessons can be learned just by observing. Yep. But then you got to go do your own research and find out if that lesson is beneficial to you and what you try to do and what you're going to hope to achieve. And it can't all be about the individual, which, everybody knows I'm enough about me, but it's not all about me. I do believe the airline theory of put your own mask on first, because if you're not breathing, you can't help other people.
Nobody,
so you got to help yourself, but you can't do it at the expense of others or to the exclusion of others. So that's part of the Snellville connection.
Yeah. So I'll make an admission to you, Richard, now, and then you just said it again, but you're saying about leadership, and if you think you're a leader and nobody's following, you just out for a walk. Right. I'll tell you, I've stole that so many times from you with our senior staff.
Well, it's true.
It is so true. And, people do need to hear that, because sometimes their leadership abilities are way beyond what other people might think it is. So that just brings them right back down to earth.
Well,
when you say
you need to have a realistic view of your own capabilities. If you walk into a room and think you're the smartest person in every room you walk in, you're just so wrong.
Yep.
But there are people who feel that way. And so it doesn't take long for that to disclose itself. Yep, and then you sort of get pushed to the side, because nobody wants that. Everybody wants people who are collaborative, who at least listen. Everybody's got their own personal opinion and their own on character, their own moral values and all. And nobody's asking anybody to change that, but you have to observe what everybody else is
Definitely.
saying and doing and why are they feeling that way. And so if you can get to the root of that, then you might find common ground that you didn't believe you had.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it works. And it happens over time. And you have to be a person of your word. If you tell somebody you're going to do something and for something happens, you can't do it, you owe that person an explanation that you told you were.
Yeah.
Because you can't follow through on every promise you make, but you can certainly explain, not make an excuse, but explain why you couldn't do something. But it's even better if you explain it before you get to the point where you didn't do it.
There's no doubt.
But we've all made mistakes,
yeah,
and we've all made enemies, either on purpose or on accident. But we all have them out there.
They are out there. Richard, you've called Gwinnett, and I'll tell you, I agree with this so much, the county of opportunity. What do you think makes Gwinnett such a unique place for growth and innovation?
Well, there are a lot of reasons for one. Number one, and first and foremost, Wayne Shackelford used to say this, the location of Gwinnett County is ideal for what has happened in Gwinnett County. 20 plus miles north of the central city. Atlanta's a vibrant region, but Gwinnett not only had a great location, it had some great early planning relative to roads. You had 2 railroads bisecting it. You had 3 or 4 major highways in 78, 23, Highway 141, all those. And then the county had leaders that looked into the future, whether it was Wayne Mason and his colleagues on the county commission and water and sewer, which they did in the mid 70s and started that project, which Gwinnett's a great beneficiary of. But to have the kind of location we had, some of the infrastructure we had, the foresight that some leaders had, add that to then the diversity of the types of industry. As you probably remember, Western Electric came here in the late 60s. It was the first major employer to settle in Gwinnett County. They could have just as easily settled, a half a mile away and been in DeKalb County, but they were in Gwinnett, which brought a housing boom to the Norcross, Lilburn, Snellville area. And I got to take advantage of in the early 70s and selling houses to people who were moving from all over the country, but a lot of people were moving out of DeKalb County to Gwinnett because of a lot of reasons. But one was better opportunity. You could buy more house for less money. You could get more land with that house. It wasn't as crowded. Now, that's changed a lot over 50-some years. When I came here in 72, I believe there were 70,000 people. There are 1 million plus today. There were only 10,000 non-agricultural jobs. There are 400 plus thousand today. That had to do with a lot of fortuitous things, but it had a lot to do with planning and vision and long-term foresight as well.
And I think Gwinnett County has had such a long line of just great leadership going back to Wayne and even up to where we are today. And you think about those people that have been, particularly in the chairman's role, just really, really incredible leadership.
We've had great political stability. It hadn't been 100%, in 50 some years. Well, you're going to get a few things that didn't exactly had that happen. But for the most part, we've had very, very stable leadership like we have today. It's a different paradigm now in Gwinnett. When I came here, it was all Democrat. All the county officers, all elected officials were Democrats. In the mid 80s, it changed to all Republican. Within about 2 or 3, 4 years ago, 20 years later, so the early 2000s, it changed back. Well, that could be a real upheaval for a lot of communities. But in Gwinnett County, people have accepted it, embraced it. They may not agree with everything that's been going from one party to the next, but they understand that. I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we're the Gwinnett party. If it's good for Gwinnett County, it's going to be good for those of us who are trying to take advantage of these opportunities. And I talk about the land of opportunity. As I said, I grew up in DeKalb, went to school in Athens, moved to Gwinnett early on. I could have moved anywhere within 100-mile radius of Gwinnett County, and you look around, you know where I'm talking
yeah,
about,
yeah.
any direction, and the opportunities wouldn't have been there that were there for me.
Yeah.
And I mentioned earlier something about hunting over a baited field. Well, that's sort of like business in Gwinnett. People were here, people were trying to come here. There were business opportunities, and I'm talking about mine was based in the real estate business, but it could have been the same thing in any business: insurance, engineering, lawyer, accounting, banking. There were opportunities where there are people that are searching for and buying products. There are people to provide those products and services for them, and that's what makes Gwinnett great. There've been a long-standing tradition, and it was started by I'm a big chamber supporter and fan.
Yeah.
As you said, I used to work there back in the day.
Well, you used to be more than work there.
Well, I was there, but I've been gone from there almost 22 years.
Yeah.
That's hard to believe in and of itself. But but the chamber was the impetus behind a very loosely structured set of meetings and groups of people who include all the influencers and beneficiaries of what's happening. That's from the county government, the school system, to the business community, to the civic and cultural community, to the charitable communities. The chamber saw the need before my time to put these groups together and meet on a regular basis with no agenda, no formal program, no nothing, just meet and talk about the issues that are especially for various groups, but so everybody can buy in and be understanding of what they're doing and why they're doing it. No other community that I know of has that kind of cohesion and collaboration.
Yeah.
But Gwinnett has, and been doing it for a long time.
So we mentioned a little bit that you're currently in January of this year, you're coming back as the current chairman of the Gwinnett County.
It is January.
Well, it is January.
I'm already it.
You are the chair of the Gwinnett Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Thank you.
But that's not the first time you've held that position in our organization, and we sure do appreciate you. But I want to take you back a little bit, because I've heard you tell this story before. Today, we're sitting on the campus of Gas South District, which has turned into something pretty doggone wonderful, I believe. But Richard, take us back to a time when they were looking at this property out here, where it wasn't nearly as busy as it is today, and talk about that a little bit. I love that story.
Well, this property, as you probably remember, was owned by the Eastern Airlines Pilots Retirement Pension Fund, and they gave it to Gwinnett County for the specific purpose of building a civic and cultural center. And then they later gave us some more land with it. Now, when that was given it was the same people that owned where Sugarloaf Country Club is now.
Right.
That was their property as well. All this property belonged to them. But these roads weren't here. Satellite Boulevard was here because it was built and extended in the 70s, late 70s, to accommodate Rockwell International, a scientific rocket manufacturing place, scientific. So that was built here, and this road was extended. But I-85 was just a 2-lane, really, road coming up through here. Sugarloaf Parkway wasn't here. All these 20+ multiple lanes across, none of that was here. But the county had the Civic Center built, and the first SPLOST, as I recall, in the late 80s, they raised $32 million to build this inaugural facility with no county money. It was all SPLOST money. So that started it, and it opened in 92.
Yep.
And so that's, whatever that is, 30 years, 30
Close
some
to
years
40,
later.
so, yeah.
A long time ago. But anyway, now it's expanded. Our board, with the help of the county and its funding arm, relative to some bond financing and other things. And, we later built this facility, then expanded, then beautified it and enhanced it and increased the exhibit size by double, built the arena. The arena is 22 years old.
Yeah.
That's hard to believe too.
It is hard to believe.
But, it was something that Gwinnett needed, wanted, but all that was done initially with SPLOST funds, and which Gwinnett's been very successful in voting for and approving SPLOST funds over the years. School system later did with the eSPLOST. But all of those things, it takes the people understanding the vision and buying into the vision to vote those things in. But this center is an unqualified success. I mean, when I was first on this board, we were struggling to pay our bills, much less make a profit. So fortunately, the county stepped in and we had the hotel motel tax. And so we had enough money to make it, but we didn't end a year with a surplus. Probably for the first 10 years, this building was open. But then we brought in some other key people, leaders. We brought Preston Williams in. We had a private company that managed this, and he was with that company. And we hired Preston from the company and then ended our contract with the company. So Preston Williams was an integral part and a key force behind building what's here. And then, as you know, and Preston's a great friend of ours, still active, just not active with us anymore. But he's around for as an advisor and consultant if we need him. But then Preston brought you on board. As you mentioned, I've known you since the mid-'70s, back in our Loganville days.
That's right.
I served with your dad on the Loganville City Council. I was 24 years old and got elected my first elective office in that year in junior hall. Your dad was not the mayor my first year, but he became the mayor. So I served 1 year with him, and I only served one term. I decided local politics, and you got to have an appetite for it, and mine wasn't for that.
You were full, right?
Yeah, I full up early on, but anyway, we had a great run there, and Loganville's done amazing things, as y'all may know. Loganville's about a third of it in Gwinnett County and 2/3 in Walton County, and so you got two county governments to deal with, but it's a local, self-run, pretty well-run city and there now, which is just 8 miles down the road.
So I'm glad you mentioned Preston Williams, and I think Preston was probably sort of the turning point a little bit, carrying it from one level to another with all the experience that he brought. And you know this already, but I still talk to him all the time, ask him his advice, and what do you think we should do about this? And he's just ready to give it that quick.
Well, Preston was well respected in the industry when he came to work with us. And Preston, while he was working for us, took assignments as a consultant. I remember he went to Sydney, Australia for the Olympics that were coming there to help them.
He did
give advice and counsel to building an arena or some convention center. I'm not sure what the structure was, but Preston is well known and well respected, and we were very fortunate that he came into our world.
No doubt.
In the early mid-'90s.
He's a incredibly intelligent man, and he's also a good man. He has a combination that's sort of rare in those areas.
Absolutely. It is.
So, Richard, let's talk about, we talked about our history a little bit, but we're getting ready to make a pretty big change that we've never known before by adding private entities to our campus. And we've seen it already with the Atlanta Gwinnett Weston, which is now open for business, sitting right in the middle of our property that we all talked about for a long, long time. Now it's come to fruition, and it was everything we thought it would be relative to bringing success here. So we're also about to start another project, mixed use. Tell me what you think about that.
Well, as I mentioned earlier about Gwinnett having these people coming here that needed goods and services, have created opportunities for businesses to grow and thrive. Well, a center like ours needs patrons, needs customers, needs people coming here. And so we had this vision, and Preston was the lead in this, to bring a hotel to our campus. It took a while to get it done, but it is everything we dreamed of.
No
and
doubt.
then for what it means to our campus, what an asset it is. And so now we've reached out, as you know, branched out, and we're about to get an official announcement, but it's been announced and rumored that Northside Hospital is building a patient service center and doctor's offices on the edge of our campus, which it was our property, and now it's theirs. That's going to bring people here. That's going to be people that need other services like restaurants
Yeah.
and dining and
Yeah.
soft goods and other things and entertainment venues. So now we're working with a developer, which we hadn't finalized. We're under a letter of intent. We hadn't finalized that, so I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about who it is, so I won't. But there will be a mixed use component of this campus with some residential, entertainment, housing, and restaurants and those kind of things on this campus within the next couple of years. It'll take a little while to build it, but what we will do will absolutely change the look of the center. We have 3 parking structures here now that accommodate what we're doing, but this new thing will take most of the surface parking that's out there now that you see and turn that into vertical construction for high-rise housing units and office buildings and entertainment and food service places. So it's going to be an exciting thing. This other Gwinnett, it was so well geographically located in the Atlanta region. Same goes for this property,
No
which
doubt.
is geographically located almost in the center of Gwinnett County. If you remember, Gwinnett County is, I believe, 475,000 acres. It's almost 50 miles from one county line to the other. And if you think it's further than that, if you try to drive in afternoon traffic, but Gwinnett, it has a great location to the region, and this center is equally as well located for our county. So that's why it's been successful. Outstanding people have come aboard and granted us things and given us things. And, early on, the Weeks family funded the initial arts center that we have here. And then you got Scott Hudgens, who came along and funded the cultural and the Jackie Hudgens Center. All of those things took people raising and donating money. When I was with the chamber, I can't take any real credit for it. I just happened to be there and tried to stay out of the way. But the county donated the land where the chamber sits. And then the business community stepped up and funded that building. We opened that building in 2000 with no debt. And it might have had a little bit of debt, but not enough to count. You can't. It was mostly funded by donations and pledges and contributions, and then we opened it with nonprofits on the second 2 floors. And then the 1818 Club came along and started being a paying tenant, and that's been a great relationship. Having that business, dining, and entertainment facility within this campus.
No doubt.
So that will be enhanced by the other things that are coming here. So, it's a vision that's already come, much of it to reality, and the rest of it will be here before we know it. As we say, I've been here almost 53 years. That sounds like a long time. Do you think back how
quickly
fast it's
gone
been?
by. Right.
Well, this next couple of years, getting this mixed use and this hospital patient services building built will be faster than you think.
So, you talked a little bit about when this campus first started, it was a little bit in the middle of nowhere. You said Sugarloaf Parkway wasn't even here.
Well, you couldn't see this building from I-85 with a tree. It was in the middle of a pine forest. And there was a road. There was a road out there where Sugarloaf is now, but it was just a little known county road, not a major thoroughfare, certainly not a traffic corridor. And then Satellite Boulevard was there. But you had to, and this was before GPS and Waze and MapQuest. You had to have, a
stick your head out the window and look a little bit, right?
And sniff around and have you a hunting dog or something to find it. So for it to be the unqualified success that I mentioned, it had to have had some real vision, and then people coming on board and buying into that vision.
The Sugarloaf area now, let's call it the Sugarloaf corridor, if you will, where your current office is as well.
All right.
I think that most people, certainly in this area, but I think Atlanta looks at this as sort of a premier location. We're starting to call it downtown Gwinnett to try to draw a little attention to it. But if you look around the boundaries of Gas South District, of all the businesses that are locating here, it has sort of become the place to be.
Well, the great thing about it is it has become the central business district for all practical purposes. If you think about where's the center of business, where's the money, where the higher paying jobs, it sits in the corridor. But the other benefit to it that people don't think about enough is what it's inspired other communities around. And when I talk about other communities, I'm talking about Duluth, Norcross, Swanee, Lawrenceville, Snellville. They had to raise their game too.
Yeah, no doubt.
To be on par. And they've done that for the most part. I mean, we got some wonderful town centers.
We do.
That reach a different customer base on a daily basis or weekly basis than we do on a consistent basis as well. But it's just a difference. But when, a high tide raises all ships. And so this center came and started being successful and people started coming here for conventions and business meetings and other things, these cities sit around saying, well, we need to do something to inspire traffic and growth toward, and they've done that.
Yes, they have.
And so this center had a lot to do with the vision of these other city leaders. Gwinnett has 15, 16 cities within its county boundaries. And for the most part, they've all reacted and responded to the challenge and got their own thing going in their own way.
They do. I love talking about future growth here, all the things that this campus is going to be and already is for the most part. But I also love hearing people like you talk about where we came from to get to this point. And this is another saying I might have stolen from you, but somebody said, if you don't know exactly where you've been, you don't know where you're going.
Well,
and I believe that for sure too. So I just want to thank you, Richard, for number one, for your friendship. I do value our friendship more than you know. But number two, the leadership that you've given for this organization and continue to give, I'm not sure that'll ever be duplicated. And I want you to know how much we appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that. Sometimes you just happen to be in a place and you do enough right and not enough wrong that they can't get rid of you. So I've just been a beneficiary of being here and having a great set of board members that we've had over my 30 years. I mean, we've had great people. Never one time have we ever gotten to a decision that wasn't almost universally, if not unanimously, approved and supported. And in this mixed use, we backed up one time and put it on pause because our board wasn't 100% on in concert with what we did. We said, well, we're not going to do anything then until we all figure out, let's go make this adjustment, that adjustment, and bring everybody. And we did that.
We did do that.
And so now they're 100% behind what we're doing. And that's the way you lead, by collaboration and by understanding other people's viewpoint. And if they don't see it your way, well, sometimes you have to change.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't like that part of it, but that's what
what
happens.
That's what it was.
And anyway, so I've been the beneficiary of great board members, great county leadership, great business climate, and I just like to give back. I raised my family here, and they've done pretty well on their own.
I'll tell you one more thing when we close out today. I talk to a lot of people in this industry now, as I should, trying to see what they're doing, see what we're doing. But it never fails in the conversations. One of them will start talking about either a scandal or a potential scandal that's happened in their organization. And then they say, well, I'm sure y'all have had some. Well, we haven't had any.
No, we haven't.
We have not had any. And that is because of people like you who have kept us going in the direction that we needed to go. Just like you said, if we're not going to do it together, we're not going to do it at all.
Right.
And we haven't had that problem because of that chemistry that you guys created a long time ago. And thank God it's still here. So,
well, again, that goes back to the right people in the right place, vision and foresight and communication.
mm-hmm.
And people will get on board and understand and why. I mean, like you said, if you don't know where you've been, you don't really know where you're going. Well, history is the greatest teacher we have.
No doubt about it.
And so if you see things happening in other communities and you say, well, that's not good, but it served one purpose. It was a bad example. and we're not going to do it
That's
that way.
exactly right.
So
That's
we've been
exactly right.
fortunate in that respect.
Well, Richard, again, as we close out, thank you so much for everything that you've done and that you continue to do. And we're honored to have you on our board, and we're so happy to have you back as a chair.
Thank you for the great job you do as our
Well, thank
leader
you.
and the team you've put together. And we got a good success story.
We got
just
a
need
good
to
one.
tell
We
it.
got a good one going. So thank you. Well, guys, that's all the time we have today. We appreciate you paying attention and listening to someone that is such an important part of our organization. As I said earlier, someone who I consider to be a great, great friend, and that means so much to me. So thank you again. Be sure to check out gassouthdistrict.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and TikTok. You can find all episodes of Gas South District, That's the Ticket, wherever you listen to podcasts. So thanks for being with us today. We'll return soon for another episode of That's the Tickets. Have a great day, everybody. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us today, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. For show notes and further information about Gas South District and upcoming events, please visit our website at gassouthdistrict.com. That's the ticket.